Thank you so much for having me. Super excited about a great session today. And so I want to welcome you to the strong connection between the science of reading and written communication. And I'd love for you to feel free to take notes on your handout that I know has already been put into the chat by Sherry. So let me tell you a little bit about myself before we get started. So as they mentioned, I'm Cheryl Lundy Swift, no relation to Taylor Swift. But I've been proud to be an educator for over 25 years. I've been a teacher, curriculum professional developer, executive, and a principal. I'm originally from Dinwiddie, Virginia, and now live in Westfield, New Jersey. I've been working with Learning Without Tears for well over 10 years, where I've helped to develop literacy curriculum and manipulatives. I'm currently serving on the learning team as a professional learning director, and I'm the host of Literacy Matters Empowered Conversations. I'm super excited to be with you this morning. Now that you know a little bit about me, I do want to share with you a little bit about Learning Without Tears, and we're going to get in our topic today. So Learning Without Tears has over 45 years of experience building practical, easy to implement tools to support all learners. We support students who are as young as 3 years old, all the way to middle school age. Now, our Get Set for School curriculum gets preschool children primed and ready to learn reading and writing readiness, as well as math, science, and social studies through play-based, hands-on, and minds-on sensory motor materials. Now, many of you may be familiar with how we help children learn to form letters, form words and sentences in both print and cursive with our Handwriting Without Tears program. And we're going to talk about how handwriting is connected to students' outcomes today. Now, we use both print and digital tools to help children learn to write letters and express their thoughts, feelings, and ideas. Speaking of digital tools, Keyboarding Without Tears is our developmentally designed keyboarding curriculum that includes specific grade level learning for students in kindergarten through fifth grade. Now, our passion is continued with our two newest offerings to meet your literacy needs, A to Z for Matman and Me, which is a supplemental early literacy program. It teaches alphabet knowledge through engaged connected text. And children will also learn phonemic awareness skills, which sets a strong foundation for a phonics program, which is called Phonics Reading and Me, which is an integrated print and digital solution where children will read fiction and nonfiction books that are intentionally designed to help students learn and practice phonics and word study skills that can be difficult to learn. Now, you're going to notice there's like a gold thread in all of these ribbons here. And essentially it signifies professional learning, which is I'm excited to do with you today. We partner with school leaders, teachers, and others by offering engaging professional development that impacts teaching and learning, which leads perfectly into why we are here today. Speaking of that, let's go on ahead and explore our learning outcomes. And explore, I mean, we're going to first really look at that connection, that research that connects reading and writing. So looking at the science of reading and the science of writing. We're also going to discover the connections between the reading and writing ropes. We're going to talk about what threads connect the two of those. And then finally, we will examine practical strategies to integrate and leverage explicit handwriting instruction that reinforces decoding and encoding skills and integral integral foundational literacy skills. Now, I'd love for you to chat in which of these three, one, two, or three, and this is a test, ladies, to see if we can see everyone else's, if they can chat in. So if you would chat in, if you want to know more about the research, or if you want to know more about, how to integrate and leverage, or if you want to know about the reading ropes, go ahead and put one, two, or three in the chat. And let's see if that's going to work. So ladies, you might have to come off mute and tell me. Oh, no, I can see people. They're actually reaching out to me. I see everyone is interested in, like, you want to know how it goes together. I think right now I've got a unanimous three. So there are a couple people who want to know about the research as well. Thank you so much for letting me know. Well, guess what? The good news is we're going to do it all. So thanks for letting me know. Now, now that I know what you're looking forward to, let's take a look at literacy today. So, what two words come to mind when you think about literacy? Well, I know generally it's the ability to read and to write. But the question is it really that simple? And I'm going to tell you the answer is it is not. It is not that simple anymore. Literacy today is more than just reading and writing. In fact, you'll have this in your handout, so feel free to fill these in. So, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, also known by its acronym UNESCO, defines literacy beyond what we know as the conventional concept of reading and writing skills, right? We now know that literacy is understood as a means of identification, understanding, interpretation, creation, and communication in an increasingly digital, text mediated, information rich, and fast changing world. Literacy is really a tool for meaningful engagement with our society, for understanding the world around us, and obviously for creating a world that we want to live in. Fluent reading and writing skills are absolutely important, but we need to recognize the role that digital literacy and technology skills also play in both the way we teach and how we expect students to learn and demonstrate their knowledge and ideas. Now, you might be wondering, how does this definition of literacy kind of relate to the science of reading? So let me share that with you. So first, I want to define the science of reading for you. Like, so, we talk about it. As educators, we're really keen on these, words, but what do they all mean? And so basically what the science of reading is a vast interdisciplinary body of scientifically based research that's about reading and issues related to reading and writing, period, right? And so when we think about this, the simple view of reading, which you see on the screen, which was developed by Hoover and Go in the 1980s, shows the core concept of the science of reading. Basically, skilled reading comprehension is accomplished by the skills of decoding, which you see in orange, and language comprehension, all coming together to give you a good reading comprehension. So decoding is the ability to apply that sound symbol relationship in order to read or decode words. And language comprehension is the ability to understand our spoken language, right? Now, Hollis Scarborough later took, Hoover and Go's simple view and expanded that simple view. And let me share with you what that is in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to make sure that we understand what we mean when we say we want students to become reading proficient. When we think about that, this is what we mean. We mean that children must have a firm grasp on phonological awareness. They must have alphabet knowledge. They need to know how book and print works, so concepts of print. They obviously need to understand phonics. They need to have automatic word recognition, so those high fluency, high frequency words, whether they're irregular or regular. We want them to be more fluent readers, and of course, we want them to understand what they read, which is the point of reading in and of itself. But there's something else that we typically don't think about, and that is we want to make sure that we also are building knowledge, right? We have lots of opportunities to build knowledge. So for students to successfully master all of these components, it must start with strong foundational skills. Now, foundational skills are necessary and important components to develop proficient readers with the capacity to what? Comprehend text. And so what I want to do, I want to look at those reading and writing ropes to kind of really, break this down a little bit more. So some of you said you were very interested in learning about this. So Hollis Scarborough, this is her reading rope, which I'm sure you've seen. We've taken the infographic and kind of made it, put it into color. And so basically she has this metaphor of a rope. She used to do this workshop for parents, by the way, just so that you know, and she would use pipe cleaners to kind of show all the intricacies of reading. So this is a development of skills over time that lead to skill reading. Each skill is represented by a strand on the rope. So this model includes the same core skills from the simple view, right? So you'll see that decoding and language comprehension and skilled reading, but you can see the components that children develop in every single area. So what I want you to do is I want you to focus on that green rectangle at the bottom. So you see these kind of are broken up into two areas. There's foundational skills and then there are comprehension skills. So we call it a lower strand and the kind of the upper strand. So if you look at the lower strand for where it says decoding, and we parenthesized and encoding, there are two sides really to the same coin. I recently talked to Leah Mermelstein on Literacy Matters about this topic. It's like a 23-minute conversation, and I think we really do a good job of kind of demystifying what we mean by decoding and encoding. So I encourage you to visit it. But decoding is really using the sound symbol relationship to sound out words. Well, encoding is a little more difficult, right? Because it's the ability to hear a sound and represent it with the appropriate letter symbol or symbol. So it's really you're really having to do it a little bit more. You have to do it in your mind, right? You have to figure it out. You don't see the words. You have to know how to form the letter. I mean, there are a lot of other skills that are involved when it comes to encoding. But what I want to do, I really want you to also now see what the writing rope looks like as well. So the writing rope was developed by Sadida, and so since they're intertwined, reading and writing, one helps you get better with another. It makes sense that in addition to a reading rope, there would be a writing rope as well. So the writing rope depicts the many strands that contribute to fluent, skilled writing. Now, what's important to keep in mind here is that the skills needed to support writing also support reading comprehension. Now, the strands are critical thinking, syntax, text structure, writing craft, and transcription. Now, what I want to do is I want to look at that first strand, right, critical thinking, as an example of how the two ropes are really connected. So in order for children to really generate ideas and participate in the writing process in any way, children must have background knowledge, which connects to that background knowledge strand on the reading rope. And in order for children to organize or draft, write, and even revise a written piece on any topic, they must also be able to spell and write their letters and words which connects to the entire lower strand of the reading rope. So phonological awareness, decoding, encoding, and sight word recognition are really connected, as you can see, to kind of those lower strands. So essentially, the reading rope provides a framework for how readers make sense of text that's already been written, and the writing rope helps students generate words and sentences to create text that expresses their thoughts, feelings, opinions, and ideas. And so they're, again, we've kind of colorized them so that you can see them, but this is how they're connected. There, again, you can see that you need certain reading skills to do the writing and the writing skills to do the reading, which I think is great. So when we think about, reading and writing, in reading, combinations of letter symbols are translated into spoken words, either orally or in our minds or in thought. So you can see here that this boy is orally sounding out and reading the word dog. So he sees the letters D-O-G, he sees it on the page, and he sounds out dog, right? Now, when it comes to writing, the sounds of the spoken words are translated into patterns of letter symbols. Now, the boy on the right wants to write the word dog, so you can see he's got his pencil in his hand. So he hears the word inside his mind. He breaks it into sounds, right? D, g, dog, right? And so he pairs each sound with the letter symbol. So D, magic, C, up like a helicopter, up higher, back down, bump. So I now need to know how to actually make the letters as well. Now I have a question for you, and I'd love for you to answer in the chat. What do you think developmentally comes first for most children? Is it sounding out the letters in the word dog, as seen here? Or is it writing the letters D-O-G in the word dog? So to just tell me whether you think it is sounding out or writing, okay? And Vanessa says sounding out. So does Shannon, so does Rachel and Marissa. You all say sounding out. A couple of you say writing, so let's see. Drum roll, please. It's sounding out. Sounding out the letters comes first because, sometimes the mind is and brain is ready, but the fingers are not necessarily ready to write those letters. So that's interesting that we begin to hear and say sounds, faster. Now, what I want to do is I want to look at our brain and see what it's doing when we do the reading and writing tasks. So let's take a look. So reading is a language receptive process. We see a word on the page. There is a visual stimulus that triggers our auditory memory for the sound pattern of that word. And then we recognize the meaning of the word. So again, if you think about a word like box, B-O-X, we know that box has multiple meanings. So when we see that word, we obviously see the word, we know the sound pattern, again, the B sound at the beginning. We know that it's a short vowel O. We know the sound that X makes two sounds, Ks, right? And so we put that together to actually say the word. But in addition to that, we read it in context to understand the meaning. Is it a physical box that you put something in? Is it a box meaning that we are, going to physically fight? So I think it's very interesting when we look at reading and having that language receptive process. So from a writing perspective, it's a language expressive process. So we hear a word in our minds that we want to write, or we hear someone dictate a word. So either in speech or in our thoughts, and that's the auditory stimulus, right? This triggers our visual system to now begin to attach letter symbols to the sounds of that word. Then our kinesthetic memory kicks in to help us move our fingers and form the letters on the paper. Now, both of these processes can be reduced to simple equations. Let me share with you what those equations are. So the basis of reading is translating letters to sounds. And the basis of writing, right, is translating sounds to letters, which should also show us how learning sounds comes before the writing process. Children will learn the sound first. And for writing the letter, we know children need hand-eye coordination and the motor memory of how to actually form that letter. So to teach our students to read, we do have to teach the letters and sounds and how they're related, but it's not always as easy, as it sounds. So research shows us there's something special about language development and the act of handwriting. Now, in studies, kids who practice handwriting do better at reading and spelling, period, full stop. Now, why is that? Well, some experts believe that forming letters by hand while learning sounds activates reading circuits in the brain that promote literacy. So we've been able to see that obviously happening now that we have the technology to see what's happening in the brain, what parts of the brain light up. So every word has three forms, right? So it has a sound or a phoneme. It's orthography, which is spelling. And of course, it has its meaning, right? So orthographic mapping, which you, I'm sure, have heard of, is the process that all readers use to become successful and fluent readers. Now, back in our day, we thought about memorizing words, and now we know a little bit better than just memorizing words. Through orthographic mapping, students use the oral language processing part of their brain to map or connect the sounds of words they already know, or so the phonemes, right, to the letters in a word or the spellings. They then permanently store the connected sounds and letters of sounds along with their meaning into their brain so that we can instantly recognize words. And so we describe these words as like sight vocabulary or sight words. Giving students the opportunity to encode as they are decoding strengthens the letter sound connections in the brain. And I'll share with you, how we do that. So when we think about kind of decoding and encoding, for successful decoding and encoding, a child really needs, number one, alphabet knowledge. That is learning to recognize and identify letters, learning the sound correspondence, and learning letter formation. So when we say the word alphabet knowledge, it's really three sub skills that we're talking about. These are integrally tied to reading success, and they're essential for writing success as well. It's in the process of encoding and decoding where the foundation for written expression is really exists. Now, the research is clear when it comes to helping children achieve these skills. So here's a little bit of research for those of you who wanted number one. We know that the skill of linking letters and sounds is just not enough. In fact, Foreman and his colleagues say in cracking the code of English, young children need explicit instruction in academic language skills and the ability to link letters and sounds to decode words and to read connected text. Children need access to books that provide an opportunity to practice using their letter and sound knowledge in connected text. Now, I'm going to share with you the research shows that authentic connected text, when I say connected text, I mean connected to the skill that they're learning, right? Really, so these decodable books, it really works to solidify the early literacy skills. Now, we've been talking, I want you to know we've been talking today. Here are two kind of materials I want you to see. Here are two examples. This is Mac and the Magnificent Mask. That's from our A to Z materials that I showed you earlier. And on the right-hand side, you'll see Brad and the Drum from Phonics Reading and Me. Now, what I want you to see, I want you to look and see that we use real stories that make sense with diverse characters that encounter problems, solutions, and relatable emotions while they are learning, in the case of A to Z, how to say the letter sounds, and in the case of Brad and the Drum, how to actually work with phonics as well. So you can see here, that exists here. We want to make sure that we're doing that. So after we do an interactive reading experience, it's really important that students are able to immediately apply and practice their writing to solidify the connection between the letter name, sound, and forming the letter. It's important to provide a just right challenge for our young readers. Now, I'm going to show you a video, and as you're watching the video, I would love for you to share in the chat how the teacher is connecting back to the book during their writing experience. So I want you to take a look. This is a kindergarten class, by the way, in Texas. So let's take a look.
What do you see at the top of page 26?
K.
What kind of K's?
Uppercase.
Okay, so I want you to trace over the capital K. Okay, so what do you see next to it? You have your
Lowercase.
K. So we're going to trace our lowercase k. It's another big line down and then little line in, little line out.
And then can we do it again?
And you can try the other one on your own.
Oh.
So in the gray box, I want you to circle any capital K or lowercase k.
Duck. Cam.
At the very bottom, I want you to circle the picture that starts with the same beginning sound as kayak. Show me which ones you circled. You got your kick. What else do you need to circle that has the k sound?
Key and kite.
Yep, so circle your key and your kite. Good job.
Okay.
Do you see the three circles at the top? Okay,
Yes.
so hold on before we do anything. Let's think about the story Kaya and the kayak, right? When we read this story, we were trying to figure out where this happened. And we were wondering, is it in the city or is it in the country? And what are the clues that tell us that we're in the city? There's what?
The building.
The buildings, right. So the buildings are clues in the story that tell us where the story happened. So do you see a picture at the top of that next page that looks like a city?
Yes.
Okay, then let's circle that one. Okay, and in the big square right there, I want you to draw a picture of a city.
Okay.
So
This is gonna be hard.
just do the best you can. Let's draw. What are some things that you would draw in a picture of the city?
Apartment.
Apartments. That's right. What else?
Cafe.
All right. So tell me, what did you see? How did the teacher connect back to the book during the writing experience? And are there things that you saw in that video that you can put into your own practice? Feel free to chat in, and I'll make sure that I will acknowledge you once you've put that in. So now, when it comes to reading and handwriting instruction, it is important that we provide explicit instruction, but that also applies when it comes to alphabet learning. So explicit lessons in alphabet learning should include teacher modeling and guided practice for identifying the letter name and sound, recognizing that letter in the text, and obviously producing the letter form. It is so important that we have explicit lessons in both handwriting, and in reading. Now, the goal of alphabet instruction is that students develop what we call the alphabetic principle. Now, the alphabetic principle is the understanding that individual letters and letter combinations have distinct sounds and that those sounds are represented in speech and in print. And I just wanted to acknowledge CL Speakman, that showing explicit instruction by having them find the letter in the text and on the handwriting work page. Thank you so much. And Caitlin says, pointing out where the upper and lowercase k is in the story to help with recognition in the text. And of course, writing their own Ks. Yes. I love, thank you guys both for sharing that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, so again, alphabetic principle is really, really key. They need to have the alphabetic principle to understand individual letters and letter combinations, right? And it's very interesting because when she talked about the city and the country, country has that same sound. That's something that later on in the video, I believe one of the kids acknowledges, and she says, yes, it does, but it does not start with the K. So again, there's so many things she could have certainly done with that book. Thank you guys for sharing. So now, writing improves students' reading fluency. Research shows that. When a student stops to think about the spelling pattern that they need to use when they're writing, they're making a connection in their brain about sound and about spelling patterns. Therefore, this connection will make it easier and faster to recall patterns when when they're reading. Now, when children are writing, they're thinking about the spoken sounds as they write. The more repetition and the more practice they receive, the better they will be in understanding shapes to form letters while thinking about the sounds of those letters. Now, this happens in phonics reading and me, as we can read a book and children will identify the sounds and continue transferring that learning when writing words in their journal or student workbook. We also do that in our handwriting material. So you'll see there, we have reading and writing connections in both. So we don't separate the two because we know that they're like peanut butter and jelly. They go really well together. Now, I know when we think about handwriting, a lot of people say, well, I mean, I don't have time for that. Like, I got all these standards that I have to meet. But I want you to know that handwriting is making a comeback. In fact, it's getting lots of national press. Let me share, I want to share this wonderful clip with you. It was actually on the third hour of the Today Show a few months ago. So let's take a look. Oh no, I don't think it's gonna play, guys. It is not gonna play, and that's okay. You know what? I'm going to tell you about it. Basically, there are lots. In fact, let me go back to the first slide so I can show you some of the things that were said. So handwriting has been shown to have so many benefits. There's increased brain connectivity. It's beneficial for memory retention. It is helpful for encoding or writing new information. And it's crucial just for learning, period. So I'm sorry I couldn't show you that. You can totally search the third hour. And if you put in the benefits of handwriting for the brain, you'll see there, again, there are lots and lots of benefits. So I apologize that that video did not play. But for some reason, it just disappeared. It happens. So now, when we think about research, there is a delicate and precisely controlled movements that are involved in handwriting that contribute to the brain's activation patterns that are related to all things learning. So I'm saying science, I'm saying social studies, I'm saying math. The good news is that handwriting not only helps children visually remember letter symbols, but research again has shown it is also a powerful method through which all kinds of learning can take place. A lot of senses are activated by just pressing the pencil on paper, seeing the letters that we write, and hearing the sounds we make while writing. I know for me, when I'm really trying to learn something, I prefer to write in pencil. And there's something about hearing that sound that a pencil makes on paper that is that means something to me and connects to me. It's, as we know, learning is also a social emotional task. Now, these sensory experiences create contact between different parts of our brain, and it really does open up the brain for learning so that we learn and remember more effectively and more efficiently. Writing simply gives more hooks to hang our memories or new information on. That's kind of the research that kind of goes into that. Now, multiple research and brain imaging studies have found that handwriting specifically increases letter recognition and letter memory more than other forms of learning, like typing letters on a keyboard, visually studying, or even tracing. Learning handwriting skills also impacts reading development. Now, I want to pause right here for a second because I'm not poo-pooing on keyboarding. We have a keyboarding without tears program. I told you that. But in terms of learning, there are certain things that handwriting does support in terms of like retention. Now, teaching handwriting has been shown to have a significant impact in the areas of the brain related specifically to literacy development. The movements in writing are an important element in building the phonics structure. That's right. Your kids having trouble with phonics? Make sure you teach them handwriting. Handwriting is the secret to success for learning sound, simple relationships, and eventually spelling patterns, all which contribute to the development of reading skills. However, handwriting is not only beneficial as a support, again, for early literacy instruction. For those of you who have older learners, handwriting is also shown by research to be undeniably a skill that leads to reading and writing success and benefits, again, all learning, all learners. It is still a relevant and valuable skill for all students to master and helps pave the way toward literacy success. So even those third graders, fourth graders, fifth graders, and even sixth graders who need to learn cursive, it really does help. So I want to get back to the science of reading and look what we mean when we say effective instruction. So the science of reading supports a method for effective instruction. Effective reading instruction just is basically this: it's explicit and it's systematic. But guess what? So is handwriting. Effective handwriting, and I dare say keyboarding instruction, has the same formula. Let me explain what we mean when we say explicit plus systematic equals effective instruction, right? So we can all have a common understanding. Now, when referring to being explicit, what we mean is we're directly teaching each and every skill. So the teacher is going to define and directly teach a concept. They're going to model the task or the skill, and then the teacher guides students through its application, arranging for extended guided practice until mastery is achieved. So I'm gonna pause right there. So when we say explicit instruction for a letter sound, I'm gonna say this is the letter. I would show the letter. This is the letter A. A says as in apple, right? So I would have an apple. I would maybe even take a bite. A says in apple. I would have them maybe even repeat with me, and now in terms of writing it, I would form the letter and I would say, if I'm doing a lowercase letter, magic C, watch me, all eyes on me, magic C, up like a helicopter, bump, back down, bump. I just formed the letter A with a magic C. I went up like a helicopter. I bumped the line. I came back down and bumped the other line. That's a magic C. So again, they see me, they hear me, they watch me. So that there's no question, how do I do that? I'm never going to start my lesson with, so does anybody know the sound for the letter A? No, we're not going to start there. We're not going to say, can someone tell me, how to make a letter A? Nope, the teacher is responsible for doing that. Period. That's the direct instruction. Now, when we think about systematic, what we mean is it's really following an intentional order. And that's to make sure that all the letters or the concepts or the skills are taught. We're not willy-nilly kind of saying, oh, I feel like teaching Y today, or I feel like teaching this today. The plan for instruction is carefully thought out and it builds upon the prior learning. It's strategic and it really progresses from simple skills to more complex skills. So when it comes to handwriting and reading, it's essential for literacy success that we need to be explicit and we need to be systematic. And so we follow that same order, moving from, again, the most simple to the most complex. So now I want to talk about how do we actually do this? So how do we do this? And we believe that you need to have a developmental approach to kind of get all of this done. So I'm going to share with you steps to achieve reading and writing fluency when it comes to to instruction. So number one, the first thing we have to do is we have to establish a foundation of readiness. And I'm going to go in each one of these in just a moment, but I'm going to just tell you what they are. The second thing that we need to do is obviously provide explicit and systematic instruction now that we are clear on what those definitions are, in order to develop proficiency in both reading and in writing. And finally, we want to build automaticity. So we guide students to practice and regularly use their skills to refine them, and again, to build that automaticity. So I'm gonna ask again. I want to ask another question. This is your opportunity to participate. I want you to know. I want to find out from you which of these three steps you find more challenging. Is it establishing the readiness? Is it providing explicit and systematic instruction? Or is it building automaticity with frequent practice? So I want you to put a 1, 2, or 3 in the chat. Go ahead and do that now. I'm going to see what comes in. Where do you think is most challenging? A lot of you have said, I see a lot of 2s, I see a lot of 1s. We're all over the place. Okay. Once I see some 3s. Got it. Yeah. Yeah. And I love, so Eugenia says, with L's, number 1 is absolutely challenging. Thank you for that. 3, yes, Teresa, time is always an issue. I recently read something that said that we only are allowing students to read 9 minutes a day in a whole school day because we run out of time. So yeah, we definitely, so I totally understand, and thank you for, and of course that explicit instruction, we gotta know, well, what are we saying? What are we doing? Absolutely. So thank you for mentioning that. Well, I'm going to give you a couple of strategies for all of them, if you don't mind. So let's talk about readiness first. Okay. Now, for those of you who mentioned 1, when according to the stages of reading development that Chall created many moons ago, so decades ago, but it is still widely used today. So I love Chall, and she actually was like a consultant on Sesame Street, so which still is in existence. So the first stage, known as stage 0 or pre-reading stage, and we're talking about these kids that are from 0, right? So birth to age 6. Now, during this reading readiness stage, children learn to recognize and name the letters of the alphabet. They start to play and experiment with letters, and they learn phonological awareness skills as they play with sounds. They may learn to associate some letters with sounds, and they also pretend to read. You ever seen a student who's going, pss, 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 right? That's a good thing. They're starting to get used to and familiar with books. It's really fun to observe students at this age. Now, these readiness skills are achieved by adults reading to children, number 1. So they need to see us reading and hear us reading. We want to give students books and paper and crayons, and do some letter play manipulatives with them, which I'm going to do a couple things with you today. And I want to share the developmental sequence of how children learn letter names and letter sounds. So now, when we think about learning letters, I want you to know, so learning, this is how to write letters. Capital letter names, or writing, how to write capital letters are probably easiest to recognize, but also like, so the names of letters and how to actually write them, we start with capitals, right? Because when we look at a child's world, when they see signs, community signs, like a stop sign, guess what? The letters are in capitals. Like, you might not have realized that, but if you look at all your signs when you're driving down the road the next time, notice that they're in capital letters. And then after learning capital letters, naming lowercase letter names would be the next skill. So capital letters, easiest to recognize from a developmental perspective. Lowercase letters, in terms of recognition, are a little bit more difficult. So you want to expose them to them at all times, right? Now, they're easiest to start in terms of writing with the letters that look like their capital partners. So when we think about the letters C, O, S, V, and W as an example, they're easy to write now, because if I know how to make the capital C, I know how to make the lowercase c. It's just a little small. It's just half the size, right? Unlike letters like E and G that look nothing like the lowercase letter E looks nothing like the capital letter E. So obviously we would start with those that are familiar. Now, when we think about the sounds of letters, right? So now again, they've recognized letters. They can begin to form some letters as well. We think about the sound of letters. Letter names and letter sounds are often related. So some letter names can give children a clue for the sound at the beginning or the end of a letter. These are the easiest for children to learn first. So for example, when we think about a beginning sound, like look at the letter, let's say the letter B. So the letter B, if we say the letter, if you go ahead and say it to yourself, B, you can hear the sound of the letter B when you say it. B, right? So that's a great way to help children, right? There are also some letters that have the sound at the end. So if you say the letter F, say the letter F, it says its sound at the end of the letter. So listen, F. So that sound for F, that flat tire sound, is at the end. So that's another kind of way to think about it. And then of course, there are some letters that have no information about the sound and can even be a little bit tricky for children to remember. Like when we think about the letter W, right? So have you ever had kids that think that the W is really the D because of the sound of the letter? So again, we want to be careful, right? Now, there are hands-on manipulatives, shared reading, and digital books and activities that teachers can use to foster these important skills. And what I want you to see here is this, I want you to see that when we're using connected text to reinforce our learning, it's a great way to also incorporate like classroom themes or other subject areas as well. Now I have a video of a read aloud focused on the sound of letter S, and I want you to notice how the teacher is guiding the students to listen for the sound as well as visually identifying the letter in text. So let's take a look at this 40-second clip.
Good job. It's going to get our silly stuff. Let's do one more. Are you ready? What are we going to do with it? Inflate. And let it out. All right, friends, can you sit crisscross applesauce? Are we ready? Today we're going to learn about a letter. What do you see on the front of this book?
The letter S.
You see the letter S right here?
Yeah.
What do you notice about that letter?
Curves.
It has curves. That's right. It has curved letters. Let's look in the front. Does it have little curves and big curves? Kind of. If you look right here, what is it made out of? Little curve. Are you ready? Are you set? It's time for the alphabet. Matman has a letter for you to know better. What letter is it?
S.
S. Right here. Watch how Miss Buckaloo can trace it with her finger. Little curve, turn, little curve. Are you ready to try? Put your finger up high. Up at the top. That's right. Let's go this way. Little curve, turn, little curve. All right, friends, let's turn our eyes back to the book. Listen. Sun. Your turn. What is this? Sun. We found lots of words that have the same beginning sound as sun. The first time I read it, I just want you to listen to the story and enjoy it, okay? The sun is so hot. We're gonna find the letter S in our book. Are you ready? Okay, sit crisscross and I'll hand you a book. Can you find the first word? Sam. We're gonna take turns touching it. Can you touch the letter S for Sam? Do you see another S on the front cover? That's Sam. Where's the other one? Do you see it? It's right here on the word sun. This is the first page of our story. Follow along as Miss Buckaloo reads it. You're going to use your finger to follow along. Are you ready? The sun is so hot. Look at this page. Sam, our character, Sam is sweating. Do you see anything else that starts with S in this picture? You think that's his mom? And what is she doing?
Eating.
What is she eating?
A sandwich.
A sandwich. Sandwich starts with S. That's right. Malachi, here's your book. Look at that page. Kaylee, here's your
What
book.
are you going to do on this page?
Oh, well, why are we going to do this page? What do you see? Keep it on this page for me. What do you see on this page right here? What are these?
Shoes, skateboard.
They're shoes, but do your shoes have wheels on the bottom?
Yeah.
No. What do we call those kinds of special shoes?
I go for myself.
You put your helmet on so you don't bump your head when you ride skates. What are those?
It's wheels.
They're wheels. Something's missing.
Yeah.
Something's missing from that wheel. Do you think you can help me finish it? There you go. So what I want you to do is find that arrow on the wheel. Can you start on the wheel? And we're going to make a magic C so it can make a nice wheel for those skates. There you go. Now your roller skate can roll. What is this guy? Hang on, Malachi. What's this? Do you know what that is? A squirrel. That's right. Can you help him follow that curvy path?
That's silly.
That is so silly, isn't it?
I did it.
You did it. Your squirrel went down the mountain.
I said 40 seconds. It was a little longer than that. But I want you to notice that those are pre-K children. You can see their little squirmy bodies, right? So there are quite a few things that she did to support. But I want you to also see from a handwriting perspective, some things that she was even doing when they were working in that book. So number one, you can see to achieve readiness for handwriting, there are a lot of skills to master. Grip, coloring, drawing are essential to emergent writing skills. Letter play and letter building help children learn position concepts. She said, we're going to start at the top when she had them all air trays. If you don't know the top, it's really hard for you to start letters because all capitals start at the top. It really does. When you do these readiness activities, it helps them to develop good habits for letter formation. And a bonus is that they're also boosting alphabet knowledge when we pair these activities with the letter names and letter sounds. And I love that she connected that book, See Sam and the Sun, right? We cannot forget about the importance of imitation skills or body awareness and sequencing that you also saw in that video. These skills are all typically developed during the preschool and kindergarten years through both play and direct instruction. Let me share a few more examples of handwriting readiness activities. So the way that we use manipulatives like wood pieces. This is an example for in Learning Without Tears, and they can be used to help children learn many skills, including sequencing of the letter strokes. Now, each of our wood pieces has a name, so you can see big line, big curve, and little curve. And if you happen to use these, I'd love to know if you use any of our tools. I'd love to know. So we use the big line, big curve, and little curve to help form numbers 1 through 5, but also capital letters as well. So let me show you how we would do that. So this is a blue mat, and so you can see here that I'm just showing you this electronically for the sake of time. Children aren't ready to write letters, then sometimes it's valuable for them to start learning the proper sequence to build a letter. So they might not have the fine motor strength to be able to write a letter, but doesn't mean that they can't learn how to form it, learn how to say the sound, right? So we either build a letter with wood pieces, we can build it with dough or other manipulatives as well. Building letters first will lead to greater success in knowing how to form and write the letters later. Now I want you to see the mat. The mat has a smiley face in the top left corner, and we use this to help guide children to start at the top where all letters, capital letters I should say, start. Now looking at the mat and the wood pieces next to it, what letter do you think I'm gonna build? So you see I've got one big line and two little lines. What letter, what capital letter do you think I might build? Just curious. I would never obviously ask students this, but, or maybe I would, depending upon where we are in our lesson. But that's right, Marissa, you're right. F. I would build the letter F. Let me show you how I would do that. So I would do it one piece at a time, and I would say, hi, smiley, big line, frog jump, ribbit, little line at the top, little line in the middle. And once children are successful with building and identifying these letters, they're ready for multi-sensory tracing activities. So again, tracing to kind of get them together. There's one other cool thing that I love to do, and that's to write using our chalkboard slate. And it's an activity that we call wet, dry, try. And basically it provides repetition and practice using multi-sensory tools This is the best way to prepare children to write letters on paper, and they really love it. It's fun. Like I love the little boy when he said, "It's silly that a squirrel is going down here." But we have the squirrel, right? S, who was sliding down in the form of an S. So let me show you how you would do an activity like this. So hopefully you can all see me. And I want you to notice that there is a smiley face at the top of the board. So all of our little pieces like this have a smiley face at the top. And what I'm going to do, you see D on the board. I'll do F again so that you can see how it's done. So this is the teacher part. So the teacher part, you're going to do this when students are not around, right? So students would have, if you have 4 students, you need 5 boards, 1 for yourself, 4 for your kids, if you're going to do it in a small group. And let's say I'm going to do the letter F. So the teacher would write the letter F on 4 students' boards. She would leave her own board blank. This is how she would prepare the student's board, just so that you would know. She would, again, write the letter F, and the F goes like this. Hi, smiley, big line down, frog jump ribbit, little line across the top, little line across the middle. Now, so that means that when the kids come in, they all have an F for fantastic on their board, right? So now the teacher needs to show them how they got that F on the board. So the teacher is going to model for them. So the teacher would say, "Hi, Smiley." Again, that gets my eye to the top. Watch me write the letter F. "Hi, Smiley. Big line down, frog jump ribbit, little line across the top, little line across the middle." So now the teacher has shown the child how that F got on their board. Now the rest of it is the student part. So the student would take a sponge, and I just have these little, people put Jello and other things in these little cups, or condiments in these little cups. And so I have these little cups, as opposed to like a Dixie cup, because a Dixie cup will get really soggy. And I have it with water in it and some little sponges. I have the students squeeze out all of the water, and they're going to now wet it. So the student would do this part. "Hi, Smiley." And they would, of course, they would not be holding it like this. They would do it on their desk, but so that you can see me. They would trace it with a wet sponge, and they would say the sounds. Big line down, frog jump ribbit, little line across the top, little line across the middle. So they've wet it. They would now take a paper towel. This is just a Bounty paper towel that I cut into about like a 1.5 inch by 1.5 piece. They would wad it up using those important handwriting pieces, and they would dry it. "Hi, Smiley. Big line down, frog jump ribbit, little line across the top, little line across the middle." So now you'll see that I've dried my letter F, but I have the outline of what my teacher did and then what I did. And now I can try it with my little chalk. We use little tools for little hands. So, "Hi, Smiley, big line down, frog jump ribbit, little line across the top, little line across the middle." And so that is wet, dry, try. That's another readiness activity to get children prepared. We can do the same thing for lowercase letters. So you can see here, sometimes children can find lowercase letters challenging because they're in different sizes. They do not occupy the same vertical space. So some are tall, some are small, some are descending. So we actually have a hand activity that we do that it's not sign language, but to kind of help children understand that there's some letters that are tall, right? Some letters that are small, and some letters that go below the line. And we even have a tool that we have that you can see here that helps us put those hands on the slide. So you can see here a capital letter is this tall. But this multisensory activities help children to really be able to place letters on lines, because sometimes lines are what makes writing tricky for children. And this board is magnetic, and of course you can see that we can also write with chalk on it as well. So you can see we also have those pieces, the letters that are also magnetic. So that's there. Now, I mentioned to you earlier about orthographic mapping. Our Letters to Words Blackboard set engages children with fun, hands-on literacy learning as well. And you can see that you even have the heart for those irregular parts of the word, which is great. But it's great for helping with letter size and placement. For handwriting, it works with phonological awareness, phonics, and again, those high frequency words. So you can see even has those blue dots so that we can sound out. In this example you see on your screen, k, a, t, cat, right? And the heart is over the O because it's a different sound than kids are usually hearing for the letters for the letter O. Now, I want to talk to you about, for those of you who had issues with number 2, what do you do to provide explicit and systematic instruction? Well, once students have developed readiness for reading and for handwriting, we want to provide explicit and systematic instruction in these skills. Notice that we use some fun activities to help with that readiness. And so let me show you here, when we think about, this is again Charles information from her research. Students who have a foundation of reading readiness are ready to move to stage 1, which is reading development. This is where they have their initial reading and decoding, which typically occurs in first and second grades with children ages 6 to 7, and sometimes later in kindergarten as well. Now, during this stage, teachers provide direct instruction and letter-sound relationships following the defined sequence of the phonics program or whatever approach they're using. Now, teachers guide children to practice using those letter-sound relationships to blend together simple words while also giving children practice with text containing high frequency words. So you might see something that looks like this. This is how you would do it in a phonics lesson. So number 1, you develop that phonemic awareness. So start with phonemic awareness with those target sounds. So again, if you're working on the sound ah, right, you would obviously want to have lots of things. Maybe you're bringing in items that start with that target sound. And then you want to introduce a target sound with whatever's in that systematic teaching sequence. And I'm using A because obviously a short vowel A is not a bad start, way to start. You want to guide children. So you want to, again, tell them A. This is letter A. A says A. And then, of course, as in apple. And let's read Allie and the apple, right? You want to guide students to practice blending those words together, include practice for automatic word recognition for target words, and then you want to guide children to apply those skills, right? So that's something that's important for us, to keep in mind. Technology is also a great way to help us with reading development, and I want you to see here that there are lots of digital options for children to practice beginning reading and decoding skills with guidance and support. There's this physical book we see here. We're working on double vowels, E, all right, as in sheep, and EA as in beach. So, but you can see that they can go on and also read digitally as well. Now, when we think about the confirmation and fluency, this is for grades 2 and 3, or children's ages 7 to 8, we're going to move into more advanced decoding skills. So really thinking about morphology, right? So we're reading familiar materials, we're rereading books to allow for comprehension. And we, of course, we have this wonderful poster to help children to work with words that they don't actually aren't able to recognize, but they can use their decoding skills to really to decode hard or longer words. And so this is a poster, and we also have a bookmark as well. Rereading is important also in this stage. Rereading books allows students to more fully comprehend the meaning of text on each repetition. Okay. Now, from an instruction perspective for handwriting for systematic and explicit, again, we have that same direct instruction, guided practice, and independent model. We like to call it an I do, we do, and you do component, which you'll see here. So again, you're going to show them, they're going to watch you, and then you're obviously going to apply it as well. Now, I want you to know from a handwriting perspective, it's not just about having the end product. It's also the process of explicit handwriting instruction that makes the handwriting worksheet or workbook, important. It's the process, not always the product. Part of the process is making sure that teachers have the right tools and knowledge to use. And I want to share with you, here's a quick little video for us to see how a handwriting is really taught explicitly. And I believe this is a first grade classroom in Delaware. So let's take a look. Oh no, it actually is not going to play for us, and that's okay because we're running out of time anyway. But I do want you to see here in terms of building automaticity. I see it's 9:30, so we're going to give you some time for practice, but I do want to cover these last few slides, and that is for those of you who wanted number 3. Again, here's that age-old issue, right? Running out of time. So students at this level have mastered the code, right? and can easily sound out unfamiliar words. But we want them to practice, and that's practicing at any level. So not just at this stage, but all levels. We want to give them this practice to read and learn new skills, right? We also want to establish handwriting fluency. And again, the way that you do that is providing them lots of opportunities to practice, freeing up the cognitive resources after they've learned how to form the letters. Now you freed up the cognitive resources for them to focus on their actual handwriting, which I think is really key. I do want to share with you some before and after. This is that same teacher whose video we didn't get a chance to see. This is Sardu at the beginning of the year before Handwriting Without Tears, with short daily direct instruction, meaning 15 minutes a day. Here's what happens by the end of the year. So, and here's what happens. Children, teacher teaches for 5 minutes and children have practice for 10 minutes. So essentially we want to consolidate these skills, right? We want to directly teach all of the skills for reading and writing, following that developmental sequence. I do it, we do it, you do it. That's when the magic happens, right? And research supports that teaching, decoding, and encoding them together, reading and writing, is efficient, supports the overall goal of literacy, and we can teach each skill explicitly and then bring them together. Students write letters and words during phonics lessons and sound out letters and words during handwriting lessons. So again, I don't want you to think about them as completely different. Now, we invite you, we have lots of great workshops like this that we offer for Learning Without Tears. We'd love to welcome you to come. And remember, I mentioned that I host Literacy Matters Empowered Conversations. This is an example of our cursive, a cursive conversation that I had. But I've had the real privilege of talking to people like Dr. Tim Shanahan, Kareem Weaver, Douglas Fisher, Nancy Fry. So really lots of cool people. So we're on Apple and Spotify. We'd love for you. You can take your phone and we'd love for you to follow, rate, and leave a comment about things that you hear there.